Okay, my friends, this is a two-feathered day. We are going to go back to the earliest times, primordial times, existing at or from the beginning of time. What was this thing that existed from the beginning of time? It was the firmament. And this is the firmament. Now, I am venturing into waters that are separated. No. I have been a very scientific presenter. I don't care who you are or what you think. I have backed up every single thing that I have said scientifically, with DNA, with every single chemical understanding of light and all of that stuff. I never said a single word that I didn't stand behind with some material evidence. Now, I have been attacked from day one by people that said the earth was flat. Well, or is flat. That's my problem, is flat. I don't care. It was flat. I now think absolutely it was flat. Because at this point, I am almost 100% certain it was flat. However, all of these other things are true. The firmament, he has separated the waters from above from the waters below. And you say, whoa, how could he do that if it wasn't flat? Well, I'm going to show you how he did it. All right. First of all, what is a firmament? What do you think the firmament is? What have you always conceptualized the firmament as? And everybody thinks it's the biblical cosmology. The firmament is the vast, solid dome created by God on the second day to divide the primal sea, called the Tehom, into upper and lower portions so that the dry land could appear. Here's what it says in the ancient texts. God said, "Let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters." In the midst of the waters. So there's waters everywhere. That's what it's saying. Chaos. That's what I'm saying. And it also says chaos in a lot of other places. And it says, let it divide the waters from the waters. Well, let me tell you something. I have shown, literally proven in my world, that water is electrons. Everything is made of electrons. And water is the most essential, basic part, oxygen and hydrogen. It's the basis of all the rest of chemistry, basically, really. Hydrogen is the basic particle, and below that there's still particles. There's 1700 or 1837 or something like that particles that make up the hydrogen nucleus. This is fully not understood, totally not understood by anybody. They think one big proton in the center. All right, no, I gotta show it to you. Hold on. Hold on, give me a minute. All right, here it is right here. No. All right, this is what I say. We have to understand this to be able to understand separating the waters from the waters. Now, I have shown a million times that the particles can separate, and the electrons that we shot through a Venturi that Rod Warren designed, we shot light through that. The light itself turned into particles, so that we know they're particles, we know they accelerated, and we see them concuss. All right? They are literally water. They are literally water. Water, I get into the very deeply into the molecules and all that, but let's just stay with the particles. The particles that make everything are electrons. So just assume that water is what God is talking about the electrons, because it's all it is electrons. And at one place they condense, and another place they don't condense. So that's all it is water. And above the firmament, they don't condense. They are the particles of light. They're the particles of light, because they are the ether. All this was fully understood at one point in time. And then as they compress, they condense. That's where you get water from. So the waters above from the waters below. I'll do a little diagram to show you. All right, this is easier than a diagram. Hold on. Now, we all know the sun spits particles out. It has to be particles. There's absolutely, I can't even imagine how they came up with the fact that nothing happens between here and here, and then all of a sudden the earth gets hot and you get sunburned and everything else. This is what kills me. Once they lock in on a theory, everybody has to follow in line. So let's just forget the theories. Let's see what we see as reality, because this right here, my friends, is the firmament. All right? It's a layer of, it's called the ionosphere. All right? It's a layer of electrons that is so dense that it is condensing and creating water that feeds our planet and life. This is the firmament. It separates these waters, which are particles that emit from everywhere. These are the electrons. These are water, and no way you can discount that. Because once they condense, they are water, H2O water. Up here, they're just electrons and photons. They are particles of light, which is the water up above, and this condensed particles of light is the water below. That's all it is. Now, and we all know that I showed this the other day. This does not spin hardly at all in relation to this. This is moving 25,000 miles in one rotation. This moves a couple of miles. So the scrub, this is scrubbing for 25,000 miles. This is scrubbing for a mile. You're obviously not going to have the friction up here. And we know the magnetic poles. I've gone through this very deeply, so I don't think there's any reason to go any more into that. But the point being of this video is that there is a firmament, and it surrounds the Earth, which is now a circle, and we can see this. There is a space station, there is satellites, there is rockets. We are sending things to Mars to look at this and that. Trust me, see what is in your eyes. I don't know if I went into, well, I'm going to do it right now, if I did or not. I'm going to just quote a couple of things in the Gospel of Thomas, because these are words supposedly written down during Jesus' lifetime by Judas Didymus Thomas, which some say he might even have been Jesus' brother. But he was certainly a contemporary, and he was there writing down these sayings as they were being spoken. This is what they say in the Gnostic texts that were just found in the Nag Hammadi, but were stored during this apocalypse where they tried to purge the world of Christianity in all its forms. And there was a lot of forms. We're going to go deep into this, because I'm finding now you are the people that I need to address. I was trying to see mainstream teaching understand that these things were real, that were spoken of in the past, and that's not going to happen. They're not going that way. And even when I look at the texts that they wrote in the past, they said they won't ever go that way. You only can get to the people that are like sponges. And if you don't want to absorb, you're just not going to absorb. It's just he's going to bounce right off. It doesn't matter if it's real or doesn't have any. Truth has no impact whatsoever. As far as I can see on academics, it doesn't matter whatsoever. They have an opinion and they're going to stick with it because I think they realize it affects their world, and it will. But at some point, it's coming to light now. So anyway, we just got to have to go around that. But I saw something on news this morning. They were talking to, I guess he was running Reddit, and he's married to Serena Williams, I believe the tennis star. Anyway, they were talking to him, and on his wall in the back, I think there was a sign that says "Pain is gain." And he's given up his seat on the board, and he's walking away from Reddit to give it to a black guy, which signifies we need to change. We need a huge, huge, huge change. And people are walking in the streets and saying this. That's why it's happening. And it is just time. I mean, for everybody not to be treated as equal is just a disgrace. Just absolute disgrace after all this time. And it's heartbreaking. Anyway, that's a whole nother topic. Anyway, I think we should start to look at what God said. And you could use the golden rule and you can close the case. Okay, as always, I tend to get carried away by the moment, whatever comes to mind now. And speaking of that, and speaking of the golden rule, I have blocked a ton of flat earth people that just refuse to accept the fact that the earth is round and just continue to attack me just over and over. The earth is flat, the earth is flat, the earth is flat. And I couldn't deal with it, so I blocked them. And I feel terrible about it because I just couldn't deal with it. And Tyson's going through the same thing now, exact same thing. And I feel terrible about it because I can't get you back. If you're even hearing this, I don't know what to do, but I can't. But I'm hoping that somehow you understand that the Earth might have been flat. Yes, absolutely. But once you dismiss reality and then attacked me in such vicious ways, I had no other option. So I am sorry, but it's done is done. And don't do it anymore, please, because I'm showing you that exactly what was written, the text that you refer to, I can account for. And still the earth is round. We know the earth is round right now. I know the dimensions of the earth. It's very, very well understood. It's not even anywhere near in question. So for you to continue to do that to us, as we are trying to present the truth of these biblical texts, is an impediment to us and is a stone in front of our feet. And you're making a big mistake. All right, see what is in front of your eyes. All right, now, this is what an accretion disk is, and this is why these arms are folding back, because of everything out here that we have to scrub through. All of that this is all particles, and eventually it will condense into a ball. Now, I showed this the other day. I'm going to just quickly show you that other video, and you should refer to that one if you have any questions of how the ball forms. All right, I don't need to go too deep with this, but in the beginning, all it was electrons spinning in a disk. Well, they start to collect and they start to force into a ball like this. They call these black holes. Well, what they are is Earth forming, crushing particles into a ball that allows for water to be condensed at a certain layer called the ionosphere. Below that, above that, you have your particles of light, is all it is. And it's just getting less and less and less dense as you get up higher and higher and higher. But it does get hotter and hotter and hotter, where the layer scrubs against the layer from below. The waters below are scrubbing against the waters above. That's the ionosphere. And now let's go look and see what was written. All right, I'm just going to read what was written. It says that God said, "Let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, which are the electrons, and let it divide the waters electrons above from the condensed electrons below." Thus God made the firmament, which was the ionosphere, and divided the waters electrons above and under the firmament, the waters which were above the firmament. And it was so. God called the firmament heaven, which is the sky. So the evening and the morning were the second day. Now, etymology, forget about that. Let's look at history. The word firmament translates a word used in biblical Hebrew. Shamanism is translated as heaven, this word, firmament, and derives from the root meaning to beat or spread out thinly. The process of making a dish by hammering thin a lump of metal. It's also the process of splaying out clay and so forth, which is what we see. Now it says, like most ancient peoples, the Hebrews believed the sky was a solid dome with the sun, moon, planets, and stars embedded in it. Well, that's obviously not correct. There's a lot of stuff they didn't understand, but there's a lot of stuff they did understand. The Hebrews regarded the earth as a plain or a hill figured like a hemisphere swimming on water, which is not far from wrong. Over this is arched the solid vault of heaven, which is the ionosphere. That is also not wrong. To this vault are fastened the lights, the stars, so slight is this elevation that birds may rise to it and fly along the expanse. Well, I don't know about that. But anyway, it makes sense when you understand it in the electron flood theory, where everything is electrons, it's all light. And the electrons above are separated from the condensed electrons below. So we got other places to go with this, but I think that pretty much shows that we can account for these statements in these ancient texts. Now, I got a lot of other ancient texts. They're not just the Bible. I go every single one of them. So be prepared to be shocked in every single way. Because if you only take the Bible, well, all I can say is you are limiting your scope of investigation. And let's look at that Gospel of Thomas, because you cannot limit your investigation. Okay, before we do that, I want you to look at the first minute or two of this, which I sent to all of the NASA people, asking them to explain the things that we have discovered here, and, you know, please account for them, and then still tell us about their theories that can work, seeing what we actually see in material evidence. And first, right away, you need to provide objective, peer-reviewed evidence to support your interpretations. You can't just show pictures. That's not how science works. Since I have DNA-certified giant human remains, you can't be serious. Peer review is simply denial. 8 years with proof, so don't be silly. Science does not work because of your ways. Now that, and I'm sure he's a teacher, or he's some kind of scientist, or I'm sure he's a PhD. Anyway, that is the attitude. They just want to deny reality. And this was all written about too. So now it's starting to all make so much sense. It's just phenomenal. Now, and I am going to keep this, again, I'm going to show you who I sent this to and what I asked a couple of quick questions, and I am going to do a daily update on this, who responds and who doesn't. And so far, there has been no response, and that's for 8 years. So this is just recent that I've sent it to this batch of people. But I am going to continue, and I'm going to report daily on who is paying attention to this. We pay these people at NASA. I believe them. On my taxes are paying them. I would like them to be honest and pay attention to reality. All right, here goes. Friends, it's Roger once again. Anybody that has Google Earth can come up and look at this gigantic dragon that attacked the gigantic fish that is running underneath, which is that gigantic fish right there. Now, this is in the Sahara Desert, and this is in Morocco. This is a dragon, and that is his dragon-scaled throat. Now, these are spectacular by any measure whatsoever, because they have been ignored and denied. Now, NASA is a scientific agency going to the moon or going to Mars, and this same stuff exists on Mars. And I have evidence to show that. The Mars Morse code I'm going to show. I'm going to show the Mars blueberries. I'm going to show the Mars crab. This must be taken into account to stay in the realm of reality. I know it seems like you are in Disney World, but it is not fake, it is real. If you have Google Earth, you can verify this. Now, I contacted all of the people at NASA. You know, well, let's just go a little further, I'll show you. Okay, now, I emailed all these people, and they have all different areas. And you might want to try that too. It's a NASA Science, Share the Science. And they asked, they said, hey, do you have secret questions for NASA? This was in response to them putting out a video saying, we're going to Mars, and if you have questions, we can fill you in on all of this stuff. And they want to, I would think they would want to engage in these questions that I'm asking. So anyway, I sent it to a whole batch of people, and then I show the Mars blueberries, and I show they are these interstitium balls, and then I show that they are also on Earth, and then I show that they are, what else do I show here? Okay, and then I show the Mars crab, which is an artery and a vein, and that's the blood vessels, and it feeds the muscle tissue. And I show the walls of Peru are made of biological materials, tendons, and in this case they screwed up and put a piece of bone in there. Then I show there was high-tech vehicles here on Earth. So don't think, this is all God and just nothing else, because this was when they all drowned, apparently, and then they cut these slabs of meat, which are tendons, really, and then they built walls in the back, but they had all of this high-tech equipment here. They had four-wheel drive vehicles. That's a four-wheel drive tire track. They had these bulldozer things that were cutting slabs of meat. All those walls were made when the meat was wet. Now, Velikovsky did this work all around the world. And look at this. This is on Mars. This is the Mars interstitium. That's skin. And I show all this here. This is the stuff that it starts as, and it stretches and pulls this way and that way. And this is what's on the surface of Mars. This is gathered skin, and this is expanded skin, and this is eroded skin. All right, and then I show the light, and I show light particles. I show the particles of light. I show the light actually separating the black particles from the white particles. All right, so now I expect some answers. Now and what I'm saying, and I see they technology space with NASA security, and they say, ask questions. This is a new world now. I'm saying we have new atom, and they know the new atom structure is wrong, the nucleus. Our ancestry is obviously not right. History, creatures that we have no clue about, as I showed you, dragons and gigantic fish and all these things that are on Mars. So if they're not looked at, we're not dealing with reality. Now, if you look and you say there is no space station and that Earth is flat, you're not dealing with reality. So I'm caught in the middle with reality. So, I'm hoping that everybody will come in. Pain is gain. If you feel, because it's going to, like I said in this video, I said it's not the greatest day for academia here. Really, literally nothing you were taught was correct. But they have knowledge. I'm not saying they don't have knowledge. I'm saying their knowledge is skewed because it was not taken with the correct underlying understanding. And if they won't allow for that, then they are then they're lost. They're just whistling in the woods. And just, I don't know how anybody can live their life like that, but they certainly are willing, as far as I can determine. It's not a problem for academics whatsoever that I could see. Okay, this is kind of strange, because I look at all the Yale courses about, in this case, it's the religious courses, the Gospel of Thomas, then they have the witchcraft and magic. They got the Gospel of Luke, Matthew. Now, this guy is pretty good, and all I want is truth. That's all I ask for. And this guy seems like he's in that realm. Let me just, because this is about Gnostics. The Gnostics were the ones that said knowledge is the key. Your life is going to come and your life is going to go. And we know that's the truth. No question about that. Now, what happens before or what happens after? Let's see what he has to say. I cut right into way out here. But these are pretty good courses to just, listen to what they have to say, and then you make your own decisions.
Harder matter of things becomes less good, sometimes even probably bordering on evil in some people's thought, and spirit or the soul or the mind is the good thing. So you have a mind-body dualism, a body and soul dualism. And often there's a deprecation of the body and a deprecation of matter as morally inferior. Now, why would matter be considered inferior to non-material substance? Because what happens to your body eventually? You all have gorgeous bodies now, but eventually you're going to look like me. Your hair's going to fall out, your ear's going to get too big, your nose won't stop growing, and then eventually you'll even get beyond me, and you'll die, and you'll rot, and you'll disappear. The body is material, and the ancient thinkers all knew that matter passes away. Anything that is material is going to pass away and be destroyed and be gone.
This is the most hugest point that you will ever hear, because that is just a fact. Now, if you think your eternity just is nothing and you end up dust, well, then this is probably not the best place for you to be listening. But in my world, the things that were written, and I'm going to just show you some more in a second here. The things that were written were factual, and they are so beyond our ability to conceive them that the average mind is never going to get there. And in that case, I fear for that mind that body is attached to.
But things that are not material, like ideas. An idea, the great thing about an idea is that it never need die. So the spirit or the soul in Platonic theory was superior to material stuff and it was the only thing that could live forever, be infinite. They also sometimes you see, especially in later Platonism, the idea that not only is
This is Plato. He was a fabulous thinker, absolutely fabulous thinker.
Is the body temporary, not eternal, and passing away. But the body is also a prison, because your spirit, they believed, wants to get out of the body. Aren't you frustrated that you can't just escape your body and go off and go someplace else for a while and zoom out of your body and go to Argentina for the weekend? Not have to pay for airfare? So the idea was that the body imprisons your spirit and your soul. And this comes to be a part of Platonism at the time. So what scholars will call basic Gnosticism includes some basic themes that they hold in common. First, the world itself, which is material, is evil. Salvation, therefore, from the world must be escape from this physical world into something else. Gross materiality is not only temporary in some texts, but even bad. It's evil. And salvation, therefore, must be the knowledge of how you, that is the real you, your brain, not your brain, your mind or your soul or your spirit, not your body, that real you is existing in this material body, but salvation will be if it can learn how to escape the body and escape materiality.
Yeah, all right. I'm going to cut this off here, but that point he just made, if your mind can override the reality of what you actually see, then you're in trouble. And let's take a look at that. Now, before we do, here's what it says in the Gnostic library that they found the Gospel of Thomas, which was known to have existed, but they never found it until until the Nag Hammadi texts were found. First saying says, "He who ever discovers the interpretations of these sayings will not taste death." Now, these are supposed to be the secret sayings that the living Jesus spoke, and Judas Didymus Thomas, which is Doubting Thomas, recorded. The second one, look at this. Jesus said, "Those who seek should not stop seeking until they find." And the stuff that we have found is just overwhelming. When they find, they will be disturbed, and it is damn disturbing. And when they are disturbed, they will marvel, and it is marvelous, and will reign over all. Well, I feel like when you have the knowledge that we have, we are above all of the people that don't have this knowledge. So obviously we're reigning over them. And we will reign, and then sooner or later we will rest. I'm not resting yet. I can tell you that. Now, if you can continue to go through this, it's just absolutely unbelievable how it says, look at what's in front of your face and nothing. Look, Jesus said, know what is in front of your face, and what is hidden from you will be disclosed to you. There is nothing hidden that will not be revealed, and nothing buried that will not be raised. It's exactly what is happening now. Don't lie and don't do what you hate. I mean, it's just unbelievable, the things that are written in there. And there's a lot of things that just are very, 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 very hard to understand, and, well, for me, impossible to understand. I bumped heads with some of these things, and there's just no way that I can tell you what's going to happen. But anyway, it does say about the earth being a body and the earth being a corpse. And that was, Tiamat and all that stuff. It says, there's all these kind of stories written in the past that we're going to look into, because they were written by all the different inhabitants. It wasn't just Christianity. But I'm going to tell you what, my feeling is, I told this, and I don't mind saying this, my feeling right now is that there was a lot of gods, and the best God there was the God that had the Son called Jesus Christ. And he was the one that said, don't ever have any other gods in front of me. I'll take care of you, do what you need, but you're just going to have to do what I tell you. And we didn't, and it never worked out well. And I'm sure he was very upset and very sorry what he did, because he didn't realize what was going to happen. I think God is they have only certain abilities to make us do. We are gods. Okay, we are literally gods. We could do anything we want. All right, God says, here's what you should do. Here's the golden rule. Don't do anything to anybody else that you wouldn't want done to you. Now, if I'd have learned that when I was a little tiny kid, I wouldn't be feeling so terrible about my life right now. If I thought it was so terribly important, I wouldn't have these regrets that I have right now, because I would have been a different person. And I think if everybody is not treated equally, and there's not an entire equality of humanity, there will never be unrest. There will never be rest. There will always be unrest, just like we're seeing today. And the only reason that's happening is because classes of society have been oppressed. You can't come out of that without some trauma. Now, how do you deal with it? Do you deal with it and acquiesce and do as you're told, or do you rebel? It's a very hard thing. I'm not a real acquiescer, and I see this and I think to myself, my God, what would I do? I've been just so privileged. No, here I go again. I'm sorry. All right, we're going to get back to this. Okay, so this is the Nag Hammadi text, and again, Jesus said, keep looking until you find. When you find, you're going to be disturbed. And that is a fact. And let's just leave it with this. And here's my point. I want to point this to President Trump. If somehow someone could have him understand, this is the moment in history that is very few and far between. And we could right a terrible wrong and create equality for everyone to be seen as equals. And at one point in time in history, that was the way it was. And then it became separated. And that's when you started to get into one group looking down on another. And that's where we have been for forever. And this is the moment in history that you'd be remembered for, President Trump. And you'll be remembered one way or the other. It's going to happen one way or the other. So I would like, if it was me, I'd like to be on the right side of it. But, I can't force anything, but, it's going to pass away. Jesus said, this heaven will pass away. He's even talking about the heavens. He's not just talking about the earth. The heaven. This heaven will pass away, and the one above it will pass away. Because there's another heaven above us. This is the skies. The dead are not alive, and the living will not die. This is Jesus' words. It is supposedly from Nag Hammadi texts, hidden thousands of years ago, over 1,000 years ago, talking about the living are not dead and the living will not die. During the days when you ate what is dead, which we are doing now, we are eating the things that were dead, you made it come alive. This is deep stuff. So we are eating dead things right now. I guarantee you, every single thing you eat came from something that was alive and is now dead. So when you are in the light, which we now know what the light is the electrons, what will you do? So now you become part of the light. You're in that light. What will you do then? On the day when you were one, which is a body and a soul together, we became two. This body and the soul, which is the light. But when you became two, what will you do? This is deep, deep, deep. Deeper than deep. I'm going to leave it at that, but all I can say is this is a moment in history, and it's going to go one way or the other, and people are calling for equality. That's all it is, and I don't think it's an unreasonable call. And President Trump, you're a guy, my friend, that is in control, and I know you're a strong guy, and your words would be very, very welcome by Jesus. I can guarantee you that. If you would turn them towards the justice of everyone, and equality of everyone, and the golden rule. That's all we have to do is go to the golden rule. Just think it over. That's all I'm asking. I don't mean any disrespect to anyone. I love you all. God bless you.